text.
Hey guys, yeah. Today we're doing a public chat instead of just private because it's time to talk about something exciting. We've got the guys here from the Onyx record pressing plant, a new thing that's happened here in California, and today we're going to find out all about it. Got like a variety of wonderfully creative people that are inside the workings of this record plant. Super interesting to have like the creative likes of Surachai. Welcome to Surachai down there. You in Chicago?
I'm in Chicago.
And then Mr. Cyrus Rex. Looks like Cyrus, you're in Montana.
I sure am.
Beautiful studio up there. And we've got Gil. Gil, how do I say your last name? Tamazin?
It's Gil Tamazian.
Tamazin. Welcome, Gil. Where are you?
Gil.
Gil. Sorry, Gil.
Yeah. It's all good. Gil.
Where are you at?
I'm in East Pasadena.
East Pasadena. So you're pretty close by.
Yes, sir.
Late to the party is Mo Espinosa, and he'll hopefully be joining in right about now. Mr. Drumcell, and he is also part of the Onyx Records community. Hey, Mo, welcome.
On.
Good to have you here and back. All of you guys, except for Gil, has been on here before, and I'm happy to say that each one of you has had some many interesting chats about your musical directions and developments. But now we're at a point where you've come together to have a facility that is going to help artists to create their dreams. And it's called the Onyx Record Plant. Who was the instigator of the discussion of this?
That's a good question.
Was there an instigator, or did it just like happen?
I can tell my story of why I wanted to do it.
I reached out to Mo and I told him what I was trying to do. And Mo said, you know what? I have the perfect couple guys that, would be a perfect team members. And he was kind of the one. I mean, me and Mo have been friends for, 30 years. And, we've always kept in touch, regarding vinyl and everything. And where, pressing has been going. And this was just the perfect fit. He introduced me to Cyrus, and I knew Surachai from before, and we just came together and made this perfect little team that we got brewing over here.
Jill, I see. I'm sorry, I am so Canadian like that. Gil,
I love it.
Are you also part of Capsule Labs?
Yes, sir. Capsule Labs was something that we started in 25 years ago, and it was a pretty grassroots DIY pressing plant in the artist district of downtown LA. And it was at a time when it was all vintage equipment. You either knew how to restore and maintain some old equipment, or you don't. It wasn't this new revival and resurgence that we're dealing with today, where there's a lot of new talent and people jumping into the vinyl industry. It was a different time, and but here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, to interject, I've discussed this with you in the past before, shortly, Kevin, but it was around the year 2001 or 2002 when I first started my label Droid Recordings, and I wanted to get my first record pressed. I really didn't have any idea how to go about doing so, and a good friend of ours connected me with Gil, and Gil had rebuilt an old record press machine, just from pulling himself up from the bootstraps. Just got this old, he's a very, very multi-capable techie guy who can rebuild these machines. And I went in there and I was just so surprised and just like awestruck of being able to see somebody who could actually take one of these machines and build a pressing plant by himself in a loft space in downtown LA. It was unheard of, because usually when you think of record pressing plants, you think of these kind of old grease factories of just like huge machines. And that kind of spawned off a long relationship over the years. I kind of went back and forth with Gil to press records, and I've always just liked the whole DIY nature of an independent record pressing company, which when you started off with Capsule Labs. And throughout the years, we went back and forth. So, just to reiterate what Gil had mentioned, some years had passed before the pandemic happened, where Gil was looking to expand this idea and do something a little bit more like, finalize with some state of the art machines and brand new pressing machines that were coming out. And he came to me, and like, who else could I think of by putting together a pretty solid crew of people who are well versed in multiple different sides of creating a business and creating an adventure like this. So that's kind of how this all began and started.
Plus, it's great that you yourself are an experienced artist in taking your music and seeing the final results having to be important coming out on vinyl. Surachai, you as well, with the input you put into your releases and everything. Now to have a facility where you can, like, I guess, oversee that level of quality. I mean, it's kind of exciting. Gil, you're kind of also, I guess, known as a expert.
Really, this conspiracy theorist.
The CNN calling upon you when Apollo Masters basically went down, and we're also looking into, how will the future proceed when one of the only two lacquer master making facilities in the world has all of a sudden burned down.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that Apollo Masters was making what, 70 to 80% of what is a lacquer, that basically is the thing that goes in. We'll get into this. You use this to manufacture your vinyl. But are you guys making, I guess, is there a solution for that now? Has somebody come along and now making lacquers? Are you guys making lacquers? Where do you guys sit as far as the factory is concerned?
We have a Japanese supplier who's pretty much, expanded their capacity and has been doing great, filling in that extra demand that's needed. We're still waiting for a new factory to start, just so we can have a backup. But for so far, our Japanese supplier has been doing great.
Is that MDC Japan?
Exactly.
So I also heard that MDC Japan was actually affected by Fukushima when that happened, and basically their power went down. So at one point, there was nowhere that was producing lacquer masters anymore. Well, just a short while, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't experienced a complete halt to masters. We've always had masters being fed to us from Japan. So hopefully that doesn't happen. We still do. I think there needs to be another company, just so when something does go wrong with one, we always have a backup company to go to. So there's people still doing some R&D, and hopefully we'll see some more companies. It's a great opportunity for somebody to step up and make some more discs for the industry, I think.
I mean, it must be exciting to be able to expand with this crew of guys. I know that whenever Cyrus gets involved in something, that it's all the way. So today we're doing a public chat instead of just private, because it's
hey, I wonder what happened there.
Something exciting.
I
got the guys here in the Onyx record press.
Where's that coming from?
Sorry, we were getting a double back somewhere. Might have been.
Someone had maybe it on somewhere else. Okay, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
That's no problem. I was looking at my end going, oh, wait, what have I got here? But Cyrus, you have loaded me up with a bunch of pics of the facility, and including starting from day one, the sort of receiving of the machinery. So this place is in nearby. It's almost, what is it, just south of Pasadena, Arcadia?
Correct.
Whoops.
It's on the south tip of Arcadia. It's more like South Monrovia. It's a very small little industrial sliver that Arcadia has. It's a really
You guys are loading in. So, I mean, in this case, I gather that finding a facility is also important. What made you decide upon the area where you guys set up?
it's a really nice little industrial hub that we have on the east side here. It's super safe, clean, well put together, easy accessible. There's great industrial spaces that are exactly what we were looking for. We looked at all different areas. We weren't really searching in one designated area. It's just to find what you're looking for, where they allow you to cut the floors and the roofs and do all kinds of crazy modifications to a building. You need to find a landlord that's willing to let you tear up their building. So it was a bit of a challenge just to get that.
It looks like such a technical setup. It's like, I mean, for us gearheads out there, I mean, Surachai and Cyrus, all you guys are heavily modular dudes. Is this like a whole new excitement?
Man, when you touch that thing with your hands, that's like the type of steel, the type of materials that things being manufactured from is like.
Where do
like
these
top of the line, like industrial? This thing's coming from Sweden.
From Sweden? Wow, that's got to be just absolute precision stuff then.
Yeah,
and certainly one of you, Gil, are you the guy that's like, hey, shh. Are you the guy that's like, who's the overseer of how that? Who would know if this is set up right or not?
Gil's the man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not.
I do all the setting up. I mean, we don't really hire people to set this up. It's all If you don't know how to do this stuff, you shouldn't really be in the business.
And that's why I guess they were where you come along and they're called upon the expert, but you're also working with artists. How do you as the artist integrate, especially being that you're also Mo, you're close by. Surachai, you're flying in, or how is your role gonna play out in this?
Like, I know people from like Skinny Puppy and Nitzareb that are interested in using this stuff too. So it's like, that's kind of our role, like kind of like the general aesthetic of everything, the PR, knowing who we know and having standards of what we want from it, right? Like, what better point of view of someone who's been doing this for, like, on my end, like 10, 13 years. Gil's been doing this for 25 years, Mo 20 plus years, Cyrus 20 plus years. So it's like, I mean, my story basically is like, I've been making vinyl through various pressing plants, and at one point I was quoted 14 months for the turnaround time.
Right.
And that's like completely unacceptable. So I just had this like white blinding rage where I was just like, I'm gonna start my own thing. So I started reaching out, and Mo heard stuff, and we got connected. And I've been to Gil's facility before, and it's just like, so like, it was inspiring of like the DIY-ness of it, and just like, wow, this guy knows what the fuck is up, because a lot of these places are kind of like popping up like record pressing plants, and people just think it's like a plug and play. As you can see, it's not. It's like an industrial thing with true engineering, electrical, and just like an understanding of like boilers and chillers and all that stuff. I think Mo, Cyrus, and I can just basically nod and be like, okay.
Actually,
Well,
that's funny that you bring that up, Serge. Actually, the last time when we had one of our Black Noise label nights at Capsule Labs, and Kevin was there. You were there that night, Kevin.
Where was that?
I was a hanger.
Mo, turn up your microphone a little bit, Mo. You can use a little volume.
Is that better?
A little more.
Let's see. Is that better?
There you go. Ooh, there he is.
Yeah, no, I was saying
it's nice and juicy as Surachai.
Yeah, I was saying last time we did one of our Black Noise label nights. I remember Basek played, Alessandro.
Oh, right.
Played, and
that's with Vatican Shadow.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was Gil's place where the last Capsule Labs location was.
I was marveling ever since that night. Whose place is this? What place is this? It was amazing. that you had the facility there to make it all. And so does that place still exist?
The building exists, where we haven't been there in a couple of years while we've been, building this new facility. And what's crazy is, where we started off in the art, that was my third location. This is now number 4.
Okay.
Originally, when we started off in downtown LA in the artist district, I got away with 10 months in a residential building with 14 units. And one day the management drove by my roll-up door and caught a peek glimpse of all this equipment shoved into like this 4-car garage roll-up door of a loft building. And I got an immediate phone call for the management, like, what the, what is this nuclear power plant you got going inside? They gave me 14 days to get all my shit out, or they were going to confiscate it. And these are the kind of hurdles we've had to deal with.
That's what a challenge. I mean, is everything a hurdle these days? I mean,
yeah.
What you were saying earlier, Surachai, about the weight that people were having to endure to make a piece of vinyl was almost making it impractical, because you couldn't have an album ready to go and then put it into manufacturing and wait 8 months and still have it be counting as a new release. It was almost be like retro at that point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had a friend who had to wait 12 months for her tour to start. And I'm like, you're a different artist in like 2 months. How can you relate to material that's so far off? And like, I asked her what she had to do. She's like, I had to like live in my sessions for a month to like kind of remember. Otherwise, like, it just creates this really weird push-pull on timelines, and it really affects the smaller artists.
And not only just smaller artists, but smaller independent record labels too, because
absolutely, yeah.
It's impossible to stay in business if you're constantly, as an artist, recruiter working in AR, trying to find new releases, schedule manufacturing, schedule the release date of that record, and then you're sitting there forever having to plan releases years in advance. And I mean, as it is already, as musicians, we're already faced with such an incredibly short shelf life that music has already, let alone having to wait such extraordinarily long times just to market and put your products together. And that's been a detriment to a lot of smaller record labels of all kinds of genres, to have to just sit there for months and months and wait for products to come in.
Where were you guys previously getting your records made, Surachai, Moe?
Well, actually, when me and Surachai were doing Black Noise, I think we both wanted to produce our own individual records locally. So I believe you were working out of Chicago. Who was it, Surachai?
I was using Got a Groove in Cleveland that are amazing. It's just they got so backed up and it was ridiculous,
I was still doing my records with Gil, so I was still going over there and doing all of those records with him. And,
but I mean,
I kind of got the bug, because there was times where I'd ask Gil for like all kinds of special things on my records if I wanted, crazy stuff, and he'd be like, dude, just come in here and look at what you're making me do. And being able to like sit there and watch and just kind of learn from a distance of exactly how he was doing it. It was an eye-opening experience, and it was also incredibly inspiring to just kind of be there and watch your music come to life on a medium that you love so much.
So what's our current wait time then? About 3 months less, right?
Yeah.
Right now, our turnaround time is 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay. I mean, that's just like fucking amazing,
That's like what a record company has a plan ahead stage of about that length of time, and that starts to work within the realm of the real world for artists again.
Right.
So yeah, it's got to be exciting. I mean, this looks so technical. I mean, I can only imagine the sounds this machine makes. Because
I have sound designer friends waiting for me to come back into town and just like get an hour with this thing.
Gil, maybe you can touch on the particularities of this particular pressing machine and what cuts it apart from the other options on the West Coast specifically.
So yeah, as Cyrus says here on the West Coast. This is the first of its kind on the West Coast. This pressing machine does exist in other plants in the Midwest, in the country, on the East Coast, but so far on the West here, we're excited to be the first pressing plant to bring one of these out here. What's super special about this machine is they take the old classic green monster, the Alpha 2Lex, and they've, you know, stepped it up and really implemented all kinds of smart PLC touchscreen computer designs incorporated. It's really kind of fine-tuned. Not only does it have all the new modern, you know, electronics, but they've really kind of thought out a lot of different things that some of the other pressing machines are missing. What we're looking at right there in the front is an automatic sleeving unit where we don't even have to get our fingerprints on the records. This thing will automatically grab the record and package it in a sleeve and stack it and count it, and does a lot of amazing little things that other pressing machines don't do.
That's excellent. I mean, one would never know the nuances. It just looks like spaceship. How much of this I mean, I gather that, you know, knowing the ins and outs of this and being able to service it, are you also servicing the machine, or do you have to call in the Swedes to do the service?
They do have an orientation available. I was talking to my rep, Scott, a couple of days ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm so excited to come see you soon. I have a little window in January where I'm going to be able to come out there and see you guys and help you install this machine." I'm like, "Scott, no one's waiting till January. Little do you know, we're already pressing records." And he was like, "What?" He couldn't believe it, because most people that, you know, try to start a pressing plant aren't really able to do it without proper help. You always have to have one or two really qualified engineers and technicians at a pressing plant to be able to fly solo without, you know, the factory holding your hand through this thing. I mean, it's not going to run on autopilot. It does require servicing on a regular schedule. And it's very dangerous. It's a very, I mean, you have to be willing to get hurt. I mean, it's not a CD burner, you know. I mean, this thing can really eat you up if you're not
Really?
doing. Yeah.
What are the risks, like, in the sense of?
Let's talk about a steam hose blowing up and melting half your face off.
Oh my God!
You know, there's a lot of, you know, things that can, moving parts under a lot of pressure. We're talking about 385 degrees of steam right there, 150 psi. It's dangerous. A lot can happen. You know, you're dealing with just stuff that can go wrong. I have a friend, actually, it was somebody that used to work for me at Capsule Lab. His name is Robbie. He, you know, I trained him on how to press records. He ended up moving to Texas because he had some relationship out there, and he got a job at another pressing plant in Texas, you know, with the skills. And a year ago, I saw him, you know, send me a picture. His finger was all mangled up, and he had like 24 stitches on his finger and pieces of his,
Wow.
you know, ligaments they had to craft together. And I asked him, I'm like, "What happened, man?" And you know, he goes, "I slipped. I just, you know, I you know, I wasn't paying attention." And, you know, he's using the Canadian machine over where he's working, and there's a long center pin that shot right through his finger because he wasn't careful under a lot of pressure. And it you know, it happens. And that was just a pin. It was like a 1/4 inch, the center pin that goes in the middle of the record. It shot through his finger and really almost
all the things you would just take for granted.
Exactly.
Hey, Kevin, you want to come over?
Yeah, no. On a machine like this, you were saying there was an automatic sleeving mechanism, and
Right there.
Yeah, right there.
Right there.
That's incredible. So
If you look at that square, in kind of in the middle, like that metal outline of a square, you'll see beneath it, they're like suction cups. It like sucks up the paper one by one. It's like, dude, it's just like old school manufacturing. It's like suction. There's hot water, there's cold water, there's pressure, there's steam. You know, it's not. It's not burning CDs.
Lots of compression and gear here that looks to be designed to. Okay, so we'll get into the manufacturing of the full procedure here. This is the last part of the procedure where you guys are taking a lacquer and I'm gathering that the lacquer has it gone out and been cut already before it hits this machine, or do you guys also do Gil, I should ask, are you part of the secret society of the lathe trolls?
Yes.
That's
Hey,
the first time I've
guys,
ever heard
right
that, but
there.
I like that. I like that a lot.
No, seriously, you guys are rare, and they say that they're, it's a dying breed, so your training is invaluable. Along the way, before we hit this machine, it goes through various stages, and people would think, well, how does it get there? Does it just end up? You just take your master there? At first, when you're dealing with mastering specifically for vinyl, what's the rule typically for that? Isn't it like that? Something like if you've got your great sounding mix, that you should typically back off like about 3 dB on your sub, or is there a general rule when pressing vinyl and mastering?
There is, and a lot of people, when they try to prepare stuff for vinyl, this is a great topic, a great conversation topic here, is proper preparation for vinyl. But, the problem is that there's a handful of rules out there that people tend to follow. And when I get masters sent to me from some of the top mastering facilities in the country, it doesn't necessarily always translate well. Sometimes following these rules, they go a little too conservative and the mix falls apart. And the best way to do it is to have a lathe, which we have here. And you have to, as you're mastering, cut a small sample of that audio content, put the needle on the record, make a final determination with your ears of what it needs and what it doesn't need. By following a guidebook of rules of what vinyl mastering should be, some people overshoot and undershoot trying to be safe, so the vinyl doesn't distort or saturate. And in doing so, we hear a lot of masters sent to us where it didn't really need to be so backed off, let's say.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a good rule to find out, because I think there's no one's spreading around that word about, well, what do you do that's different? Even though they'll say that you should have a specific master for vinyl.
Right. Yeah. And then there's, I'll give you some of the main guidelines. Your bass needs to be in the center. With vinyl, one of the biggest dilemmas we have is when there's bottom end panning going on. If there's any kind of indifference between left and right, anything under 500 hertz, it causes the cutter head to lift up, and we call that cutter lift. And when you're looking in the microscope, which you should have like a consistent riverbank going side to side, it starts looking as if it's going fat to skinny, and what that's doing is it's lifting up, and it can essentially launch your needle into the air and cause a skip. So that's one of the main things there's obviously paying attention to your high frequencies and not over limiting and over compressing, and making sure bottom end doesn't get saturated. When we're cutting smaller diameters, if the same song that was cut into a big ring on the 12-inch diameter, you take that same song and you cut it in a 5-inch diameter, it doesn't sound the same. Your frequency response is going to be different. So depending on where the song lands on the record, we have to take that into consideration and master it slightly different according to where it fits.
And they're saying that the typical best quality for a vinyl at 33 RPM is what they used to make the old cassettes, 46 minutes, because the perfect vinyl was said to be 23 minutes a side. So that's why they made the old 46-minute cassettes back in the day, Maxell 46.
Wow.
Are we able to get away with more time now or less time? What's recommended time per side?
The industry has been leaning towards less time, because with today's hot music and people try to put out singles and make them sound robust, they've been trying to push the envelope of cutting louder and louder and making things sound more bold and better fidelity. And in doing so, we've kind of drifted a little bit farther away from these really long full length like Zeppelin and Floyd type albums where they're trying to put 22 minutes to 24 minutes of music on each side. Of course, we still have bands that are putting full length albums out and you know, that kind of stuff, but we also see a lot of bands leaning towards double packs. At some point, they know it's a pricey product. They don't want to sacrifice quality, so they're like, why don't we just do a double pack and get better fidelity out of it and keep it to 15, 16-minute sides where we can cut louder and make it more clean and robust.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the more time you put on the record, the quieter the record's going to be. So you're going to see that, especially with a lot of dance music DJs or drum and bass DJs or somebody who's got a lot of sub and a lot of bass, and they want like that +6 decibel volume on their record. They're going to want to cut less time on the record. So, you know, maybe maximum 11 minutes or two tracks on each side that are about 5-6 minutes each, something like that. Once you start pushing it past that, then you're sacrificing volume as well.
If we're dealing with like a problem a little bit with 500 hertz and below, what's being done that makes vinyl so nice in the sense of having that warm spectrum, say in the 40 hertz, 50 hertz area? How is that? How are we still achieving that when it seemingly is the problem with cutting vinyl?
Some of us, you know, lacquer cutting engineers, we have specific tools that are made for these issues. I have a unit here it's called an elliptical equalizer, and it takes lowland information and kind of brings it to the center as I dial that in without sacrificing clarity in other areas. You know, you don't want to do it in a way where it's going to destroy the content. You know, we can't just do it in the computer and just bring your bottom end in. You know, this is done with transformers and analog components in a way where it does it smoothly to achieve that result.
So are you guys also doing mastering for vinyl there? It looks like you've got a mastering setup in front of you there, Gil.
Yes, and we have the lathe right here as well.
Oh, and you have the lathe as well.
We have the Neumann lathe,
and you are a member of the Secret Society of the Lathe Trolls, which is it one of the classic Neumann lathes, or which one you got?
Yeah, I haven't.
Oh, it looks like your visual shut off.
Oh, it did?
Maybe got disconnected when he was moving it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Here we go.
Yeah, it is a Neumann lathe, right, Gil?
Yes, it is a Neumann lathe.
And that's the real McCoy, they say. You don't want to be messing around with, you know, with anything. Well, Cyrus, you were just saying this, you wanted to go next level on this. Is this your dream being come true, Cyrus?
You know, I wouldn't have done it, A, without doing it all the way, and B, without the exact people we're working with. You know, it's kind of like the dream team, and it's the dream setup, so to speak, and there's no point to do it otherwise.
Perfect. And I get the vibe right away that everything's right on target. So let's talk about, okay, we've gone from mastering, and then you have Gil on the cutting, on the lathe. And Gil, you're taking a lacquer and you're gonna cut the record into the first lacquer. Is that what what you're getting from MDC Japan? In either, what is it? Are you guys doing 7-inch and 12-inch or just 12-inch?
We're strictly 12-inch at the moment.
Yeah.
Just 12-inch. So you get a 12-inch lacquer, and then that cut from the lathe cuts the is that called the test pressing at that point?
No.
See, there's various stages, isn't there?
This is a lacquer master. The lacquer master is the first cut. The master lacquer on the left over there. So from there, it goes into electromagnetic plating, where they're gonna spray silver oxide onto the disc, and they're gonna submerge it in acid and liquid, and they're gonna give it some electricity, and it's gonna kind of act as a cathode follower, galvanics, same as kind of chroming a bumper process. And you're gonna have nickel oxide start to collect. First they do a copper, and then they do the nickel. and the metal will start to collect onto the disc, and then it's just a matter of peeling it apart and forming it. And that's what you could see. The mother is usually made out of a copper, and then a stamper is usually made out of a nickel.
And so
from there, we make the test pressing out of vinyl.
are all these things, the Metal Master, the Metal Mother, and the Metal Stamper, they all sound like song titles, by the way. Are all these things manufactured within your facility?
No.
So you do still have to send out after the lathe cut?
Yeah, there's a few companies that handle plating in the country and do it real well. We like to let them handle that part because we're already wearing a lot of hats as it is.
Yeah.
But maybe one day we'll expand into plating ourselves.
Yeah. The process of plating alone is quite a big step in its own right. So yeah, we send out to get it plated, and then the plates come back to us for the pressing.
I remember they used to fly us out to go for the lacquer cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they would fly us as artists out to do that? Was there some sort of is this a time where it's like you can still approve or say, hey, that's right or wrong at this stage? Or is it something that you would know? Like, I mean, I thought that we were just being flown up there so we could scratch something into the lacquer master.
I mean, I think there's something really cool about sitting there and actually watching your music being transformed into an actual disc. I mean, if you look at for anybody who doesn't know, the lacquer itself is just basically a metal plate with a very, very thin kind of nail polish material on top of it. So when you put the needle onto it and it starts cutting into that very thin layer, that's the translation of your music actually going onto this medium. I think that's an exciting process to step in and be a part of. But also, you were mentioning test prints, not exactly test pressings, but a lot of people do actually just take the lacquer cut off of the lathe, and that's what dub plates are.
Exactly.
So I mean, like a lot of old dub and reggae bands wouldn't press a full run of records used to actually just cut dub plates and just play dub plates straight off the lathe.
Yeah, you know what was amazing is that one time I was in Jamaica and I went into a studio in Ocho Rios and cut a track. And the guy, as we were laying the track with a vocalist that I found down there, he was cutting it direct to the lacquer on the take that the guy was doing with the song.
Gil has
I was just totally blown away. It was a 10-inch. And after he just handed it to me, and I still have them, I like how they're heavier. So at that stage, there's a rumor there's only a limited amount of plays for them, isn't there?
Yeah, because if you think about it, every time you drop the needle onto the record, which is still that very thin layer of nail polish, that lacquer for a lack of, for easier understanding, every time that needle plays, you're wearing that groove down thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So, you get 50 plays out of playing a dub plate until you start hearing a lot of surface noise.
And then people that buy the test pressing things about when on Bandcamp, when so many people are like, oh, let's get the test pressing, it's often quite expensive. People, I don't know if it's good advertising for me to say this, but people probably don't realize that there's a limited number of plays on this compared to a real vinyl record, isn't there?
On a test pressing?
Test pressings are just as good as the record.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're earlier on though, right, Gil? Like there might be more static.
Yeah, test pressings do sound a little rough around the edges compared to a full run. Usually after 30 to 40 pressings, the stampers tend to naturally deburr themselves and become cleaner after a dozen or two pressings. But test pressings were, essentially they're made for the purpose of the artist to listen to and approve the run to move forward. They weren't really made to be sold, but you're absolutely right. We have been seeing a lot of that because it's an advanced pressing. It's a record before the record came out. So it's a special disc. There's only 3 or 4 of them or 5 of them. And when somebody finds one of those available for sale, they do value it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of grows like a cultural phenomenon of its own, right? Because if you get the rare test pressing of a record, then you want to get your hand on that. I mean, I remember even back in the early days in the dance music world, like when the Miami Winter Music Conference was going on. This is before we were handing out digital promos to people. If you were a person who pressed 12-inch records, sometimes if you wanted to get your records out fast enough before you went out to Miami for Winter Music Conference, you would just take your test pressings. So people would press like 50 test presses, and then they'd go out to Miami and they'd hand them to like label executives or to big DJs or artists to just try to get them out. And there's kind of been like a small cult following of people who like seek out to try to collect test pressings alone.
So was a test pressing made after you received the metal masters back then? So it's not actually the lathe cut lacquer that is a test pressing. It's actually a first run record.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you
does-
get the plates back, and you want to run a small print of
Right.
tests. So then when you run those, 10, 15, 5, whatever the
Okay.
number is, you send those to the artist. You say, what do you think? Listen to them. Do you like them? Is there anything wrong with this process? If they hear any artifacts or something that they don't like, then, we go ahead and restart the process to maybe fix it and make it as best as we possibly can.
And it's also been known that like the lacquer cutter can become quite popular, famous, like a mastering artist or engineer as well. We all remember Porky Prime Cuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like one of the old school things that you'd look for. And I remember every Skinny Puppy album, we always put messages on the vinyl. I didn't put this one, but there's, there's various ones that I always thought it was cool that people thought like, wow, what did they got scratched on there? Some secret messages. And that, so we really got into that. What are Gil, when you're like setting everything up and you were also the lathe guy and also the mastering guy, and you're bearing all this stuff in mind, and then you're going to send it out to the metal masters guy, do you have a preference of who that goes to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there's only a handful of plating companies in the country, and there's only a couple we trust.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very, just like pressing records. It's a craft that takes years to perfect, and there's not a lot of room for error. So we got to make sure that we use a company that we feel super confident in the results.
Whose studio is this?
This was at a studio in Santa Monica. No, this was in
This is
the Artist
Frogtown.
District.
This is
Frogtown,
Frogtown.
right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Frogtown. That place was beautiful. And this is like part of what this is. Is this the mastering?
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like mastering gear. And then
this was Gil actually mastering my last Hypoxia record. I remember when we went to go get that one cut. Yeah.
And is that like important that you look at those meters to what you're checking phasing or something like that?
Yes, exactly.
It's so cool, man. It's like people don't realize that when they get these out an album, like all this like super scientific work that goes into this stage. Okay, so you're getting your metal masters back, and how long does that take to get a metal master and stamper back?
Well, it's getting a little better now, but there was a time a few months ago where we had to wait 3 or 3.5 months to get metal work back. Now it's a little better than that. It's just within a month, we're less than a month, we're able to get our stampers back. But there was a time when it was kind of ridiculous.
And that cuts down the amount of wait time then, because obviously that gets added to your wait time when you're desperately wanting it within 8 weeks, and then that gets added onto it. So does that mean that when you finally get everything in the parts back and you get set up to run your machine there that we've just seen the tour about in Arcadia, the Onyx machine, how long does it then take for what's the next stage at that point?
So like Mo was mentioning earlier, we're going to do a test pressing first. So when we get the metal work back, we'll do, a few test pressings, send it out to the artist and get the green light on it. Once we have an approval, we schedule the press, and half the wait time's over by that point. So about 3-4 weeks, we get our metal work back, get an approval, schedule the press. Within 3-4 weeks after that, we're getting ready to wrap up the project and have it delivered.
But how long does it take to actually how long does it take for one record? How how many records per hour does that machine make?
The machine can make a record every 26 seconds. So
Wow.
we're doing 1,200 records a day with one machine.
That's amazing. I wouldn't, for some reason, I didn't know that answer before this. Did you know, Cyrus, before you got into that's how long it took to make a record? 26.
Well, that's specific to these machines.
Yes.
And it does the sleeving, everything with that timeline. With Gil's old setup at Capsule Labs, how long did it take for a record back then?
38 to 40 seconds each.
Yeah.
So you were saying how it gets sleeved and everything like that within the same machine. Is that 26 seconds? Is that for the actual metal master to come down and press that thing and then shoot it out somewhere? Or what? I mean, does it just get sent into the sleeve and then you guys take it off and put it into the next thing? Or is it the full production of the sleeve made on that machine, like including a jacket?
So minus the jackets, it will drop off a new record in its sleeve every 26 seconds. There's a new one being stacked. And so it has multiple stages. As one record's coming out, a new a vinyl cake is going inside. So as one's getting trimmed, another one's getting ready to load. It's multiple stages. But every 26 seconds, there's a new record dropped off.
Sorry for the noise here. I gather we're seeing some of the process here.
So that's material being sucked into the hopper.
And is that what the material that makes the vinyl?
Yes, that's PVC going into the machine.
I noticed on the last machine, is this, Mo, you were holding what looked to be like vinyl pellets. Is that still the same method, or is it like, how do you guys, like, if you say have somebody come in and want to do colored vinyl or something like that, is it much more complicated to set that up to get it right? Or are you doing?
I mean, so what you're seeing here is the same thing you saw in that video I was doing earlier, except this hose is being put into a huge bag of tiny vinyl pellets and it's sucking them up. In that last video, where I was kind of just pouring them in by hand, we were kind of experimenting with doing like swirls of multiple colors. So that hopper, we were kind of hand feeding small amounts of different colors just to get different swirls in the actual puck that's created once it goes into the pressing machine. So yeah, it is a completely different process to do multiple colors. I mean, we could stick that hose into another bag and do a series of solid flat colors, but to mix them and do swirls and stuff like that, it's a much more involved process. It's an art form in its own right as well.
So what we do now is we mix the colors in a separate barrel. And we get the blend we want, and then we put the straw in there and pneumatically transfer it into the hopper.
That's interesting. What is the thing? Is there anything to worry about at this stage that could go wrong? That is your expertise in play here? Like, we see this machine just working beautifully, but what are the things that you look out for when this machine's running?
There's a lot of minor adjustments that are necessary to make sure the record comes out. Number one, flat. You want to make sure that there's no non-fill, there's no stitching. And these are technical terms in the vinyl world, but basically, if there's any of these errors, it won't sound right. You'll have excessive crackles of distortion. There's a lot of minor little things that go on the back scene that, you got to make sure that not just record number 1, but record number 500 is just as good.
Yeah, I mean, with some
like
older
pressure.
machines, you would see from time to time there'd be like double labels pressed onto it or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And you're also like monitoring the pressure and the temperature of the hot and cold and all that stuff too. It's got to be consistent. Gil, I don't think I've seen your old machine, but man, the difference between what Mo showed in that black and white video, that looked like it was like half of the wall, like a warehouse wall, versus like a beautiful thing. Yeah. Holy,
that was big.
Crap, man.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to still utilize the old machine, or is it just like now that you got the new one, it's like just leave that one over there?
There was a time when new machines came out and we weren't excited about it. I wasn't excited about it. This is like the third company that's come out with a new machine that we finally were like super excited to say, all right, now we can let the old one go. But this machine is definitely special in its design. But yeah, we let the other machine go. It was, you know, it did its duty. You know, it served well for the industry and the community for past, you know, 2.5 decades. But it was really time for an upgrade, and we want to remain strictly with these machines.
It's retired now.
Yes.
Well, that's always, evolution is always kind of cool. I mean, I wonder if in the analog world or whatever that they'll ever go back and say, hey, there was something about those old machines that, did this. Or
Well, the process for those old machines are pretty interesting. Like there's some that are less automatic and that you can get more customization on. Definitely slower, definitely more boutique-y. Ours is like a little bit more automated. But yeah, there's space for both,
So when the record comes out and goes into the, I guess you might want to call it the jacket. No, it's the sleeve at that point, isn't it?
Right.
So it comes out and goes into a sleeve. People have the let's take a look at your site. The way that if you go to onyx.com, basically you can place an order for what you want there and get a quote. And what about like the album jacket and the production of a sleeve? Is that something that is done also there, or do you send out, or how does that part get done?
Yeah, we work with a direct partner that prints for us, and we basically just submit all your artwork through the website here. You can actually generate an entire quote by selecting all the specific things you want, whether it's a 2-side record or a double-side record. You can see step 3. There's a color there.
Double album, a single, and then what do we got here? We got quantity. That's a minimum of 200 there, it says.
Sure.
And then you choose a color.
Yeah, we have a whole wide variety of different colors that you can select from the record. And then, you select if you want center labels in full color or jackets in full color or just black and white or sleeves or whatever.
Custom printed, white label. Obviously you can select everything here to your liking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if there's something you don't see, obviously you can email us and we'll have a conversation about that.
Yeah. So even gatefold stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We could do like tip on, like, yeah, we could do like the big, like kind of, they like feel like hardcover books, the tip on stuff as well. But yeah, onyxrecordpress.com, you get a quote, and it's a great starting point, but it could also be the full race too. Like you could just get it done just with all that stuff. But if you're particular, definitely reach out and we can figure stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete one-stop system. So, you go ahead and you select everything that you require, and then you can generate a quote from it. If you agree to proceed forward in the manufacturing process, then we take a deposit and we start the project. Everything on the website is uploadable, so you can upload all the artwork for the individual jackets, the center labels, everything you need, and we go ahead and just put that into the process, getting all the jackets printed, center labels printed, the records cut on the lathe, and sent off for plating, come back, actually press it here on our whole setup, and delivered. So
there's a couple sites, a couple reputable pressing plants out there where I tried to get a quote years ago, and it's complicated because you have to literally email a live person and wait for them to reply with a specialized quote.
Yes.
And that's all great, but it takes too long. By the time you wait for the response to come back, make a decision, get your files to them. We tried to come up with a system where somebody can actually start their project, pay for it, upload their files, grab their art templates, get everything submitted, and not lose that kind of momentum that we love to have. It just get it submitted, and everything's automated and lets us know that it's all uploaded and it gets queued up.
I choose violet vinyl.
With everything being in-house as well, gives us a much tighter ability for quality control as well, to be able to manage everything and make sure that we get the best product that we possibly can.
Yeah, I want to take a second and talk about the quantity. Actually, we get hit up a lot for people that want like 50 to 100. And if I could just explain it here, so I don't have to do it so much in the future, it would be great, because basically the price difference between 100 copies versus like 2, 3, 4, 500 copies is actually pretty not negligible, but it's only a few $100, because most of the money that you're these quotes that are being generated, it's in the startup costs. So like, let's just say hypothetically, making 100 records is like $3,500. That's not a real number, but let's just say it is, with all the bells and whistles that you picked. Making 100 records is $3,500. Realistically, making 300 records would be like $3,800,
Yes,
right?
I see that. It's not much more here.
Right. So people are always just like, "Can I get 100 copies?" I'm like, "You can, but let me just
Yeah, you might shoot yourself in the foot.
yeah, get bang for your buck. Make 300 copies, but just say you have 100 and just give them out. You know, like don't like
Yeah.
shortchange yourself, and like it just makes sense. So that's my little spiel about quantity.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think like, oh, well, I'm only going to make 100 records because that's all that I can sell. Well, I mean, yeah, sell 100 records, but if you printed 300, save
Who knows that you have? Yeah,
have backlog. If you have
Exactly.
if you have Bandcamp open all the time, you're always going to consistently have records come in for orders, and you'd want to have a small catalog and a backlog of things that you can sell from. So the more quantity you have, the more your ability is to make your money back on it.
That's
And a lot of that comes with the packaging. If somebody's getting full color jackets and labels printed, it doesn't make sense to do 100 records. If you're going to go with a generic jacket and a white label where there's not a lot of elaborate printing on it, then 100 records is fine, and we'll make that exception and accept your order, and it would make sense for you as well.
Right. Otherwise, yeah, like commit and believe in yourself. Get 2 minimum, 3, 4, 500. Give them
absolutely
family dinners, holidays, and they're like, "Oh, you're still doing this music thing."
So you're open, and you've already been starting to press people's records out there.
Yes.
Did one of you guys step up and make the first pressing on something coming out?
Yeah.
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 I believe I'm the first one, guinea pig. So basically, my quote from the original pressing plant that I wanted to was like 14 months, right?
Yeah.
How long would you say this has taken us? Maybe like 26 months at this point.
What?
So I'm saying, if you want to make your own record pressing plant, it would just take twice the time, and then you could do a bunch more. But yeah, I have a record. I have a record that was released in November 2022, so it should be coming out any week now through this place.
And after Surachai is pressed, my next Hypoxia record is also mine, and we're dropping a new Belief Defect album too on Raster, and so that'll be as well to get printed.
Yay!
Yeah, man, I got a DLP.
Surachai and Drumcell and Cyrus, you guys are, been working a while on.
Where are you finding these?
On your craft and stuff like that, and getting your also the way that you guys work together on Black Noise with everything, and there's also the events that you guys put on. This is just a continuation of goodness. Is there going to be more Black Noise collaborative efforts between you guys?
100%, man.
Absolutely.
We got like Richard Devine. We released a Richard Devine thing last, and we look at these guys. Look at these beautiful boys. Look at these beautiful boys.
Your biggest fans.
No, yeah, Black Noise is running parallel with Onyx, and we keep on planning on having releases, events. We want to get bigger. We would love to really fully invest into Onyx so we could build out Black Noise too. Black Noise is just a passion thing that is like in between our major commitments. So if we can like have our major commitment be Onyx, we would have a lot more time for Black Noise. And Yeah, I think we could do great. I mean, we do great things, but like it would be more time invested into it.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
this.
you're still busy too. I saw you were at Berghain the other day.
Yeah, I was.
Just the
Yeah.
It
other
was
day.
getting serviced.
You got let in. You know, you're putting some flyers out for the pressing plant.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it works hand in hand. I mean, you know, we all run labels. We all produce music. We're all working with artists. We do everything we can to, you know, provide an outlet for like-minded musicians to put out their music in a format that we absolutely love. I think all of us agree that, you know, vinyl records is kind of like the ultimate physical medium to release your music on, and you know, whatever we can do to help this to kind of provide to our community and make that process more accessible is something that we're truly passionate about. So through all of our avenues, through our independent labels with Black Noise, or you know, my Surachai's independent work, Cyrus's independent work. I mean, Gil's an exceptional musician and producer
Yeah,
as
he
well,
is.
who's been making records for years. I mean, dude, the bottom line is we eat, sleep, and shit this all day. So this is something that we truly love, and it really hits close to home, and we're deeply passionate about it.
Kevin, I have a question for you. Where are you getting your stuff pressed?
Well, we have been working with Artifact Records, and
What is
I don't know where they press, but I believe that they're a Canadian label, and they would be somebody probably worth speaking to.
See what I can do.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, actually, I was going to mention it to them, having a meeting with them today, and seeing what's up. But Gil, what sort of music do you make? I see a lot of guitars there.
Yeah, those are our bass guitars in the back. I'm pretty much like I grew up playing jazz, a lot of fusion and classic rock and things like that growing up. Later on, I got into obviously dance music early on in my teens. I was DJing. So if I had to like kind of categorize my music, it would be a combination of like trip hop, down tempo, house, jazz, minimal tech, things like that.
Well, I'd love to find out more about it. Thanks for introducing that, Mo. It's always nice to meet new minds and new talent, and Cyrus is always good at picking a good crew. So, Cyrus, we haven't talked to you about what you're up to yet. What are you working on up there, other than this?
Yeah, you know, I'm working on a new project called Talent Show. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek name of a bunch of older men trying to show off.
Any names you can drop?
No, it's just my buddy Zach and me and another guy, Julian Gray, out of downtown LA, and it's an interesting project. It's a little bit more pop and a little bit more accessible than Black Line was, my last project. But
everything you sent me fucking rips, man. It's so good.